Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. I've just got back from my first tournament of the year, so I've got loads of thoughts about tournaments right now. So you're going to get a few of these about tournaments in various different ways. For this video, I want to talk about adaptation in your tournament fencing. Or being an adaptive fencer, more generally speaking. So I think this is something that is really, really important in tournaments in particular, or rather more accurately, I think this is something where tournaments make this skill, which you apply generally, way more relevant, and is a fantastic way of kind of developing and stress testing that particular skill. Well, first of all, by adaptive fencing, what do I mean here? I mean the ability to not just go in with a plan and do that plan, but the ability to work out what that plan is based upon what your opponent is doing, right? And when the thing that you think you would work didn't work, coming up with a new plan, trying that, and executing that. So not just sticking to the same routine, not just doing what you're best at, not just spamming the same move every single time, although that might be part of it still. If it is the appropriate thing to do, but changing what your plan of action is depending on the information that you're getting from the opponent, and to an extent, proactively seeking that information in order to formulate the plan. Most people aren't very good at this. Your average fencer has a thing that they want to do, and they kind of do it. And I saw this I was just at Wolf Call this weekend. And I saw several fencers that were doing this same thing over again. You know, there's one guy who basically spammed one-handed strikes, regardless of what the opponent was doing. Sometimes it worked for him because it kind of shocked the opponent. They were surprised by it. He landed a hit to the mask, and that was fight ending in those rule sets. Sometimes it didn't. But whether he was doing it or not was not dependent on whether it was working or not. And I saw some where he was in a fight, he did it 3 times, it wasn't working. He did it a 4th time, it still wasn't working. Another guy who I ended up fighting, pretty much always parry, cut to here. Well, cut to here, actually, sorry. Again, with some fences, he would be doing this, be doubling, but getting a hit to the head, and that would be a win for him, and it worked out well. And then he kept doing it and stopped working well. For instance, when he was fencing me, and I knew exactly what he was about to do, and I just parried that strike, and then afterwards, fantastic, I'm going to hit him, because it was always a strike the same location. There are some fencers, so there are some very top fencers. I mean, to be fair, this was not like a tournament where everybody was, with decades of experience in tournament fencing. It was probably mid-level in terms of experience levels, and in general, the top fencers are better at this than others. They're better at being able to adapt their fencing. There were very, very few really high-level fencers who will always do the same thing every single time. Or at least if they have something that they rely on very heavily, when it stops working, they will switch to something else. But by and large, the best fencers are the ones who are able to say, okay, this thing's not working, I'll try something new. And unless the thing that you're good at is of a particular flavor and you're really, really good at it, whenever you've got some kind of pattern where you're doing the same thing, no matter what your opponent is doing, a good fencer will pick up on it and be able to exploit that pattern, no matter how good you are at it. So there is a strong correlation between being adaptive in your fencing and being able to perform well and consistently across tournaments. And of course, if you have a strength that you're spamming a lot of the time, how successful that will be will depend on your opponent, and not just whether they're adapting to it, but the thing that you're doing might work really, really well against people who are doing something else that happens to be, the correct solution for, and not against some other fencer who just happens to have some different pattern. So what to do, right? What to do with this, and why is this particularly relevant in tournaments? Well, with tournaments, you don't have a lot of time to correct in most tournament formats, right? Once there's a pattern and you made 2 or 3 really bad mistakes, you could be 1 hit away from losing the entire match, right? So you've got to adapt quickly in the tournament in particular, and ideally before you've been hit, right? So things like kind of probing strikes or checking things out, or this kind of stuff can be used to create that. But if you are currently someone who likes to rely on a particular thing, what do? You're not going to go from one step from that to being able to adapt perfectly to everybody else. And there are two things I would recommend: one in terms of tournament behavior, and one in terms of things to do with sparring, to kind of develop good habits here. So in tournament behavior, if you're in a tournament, this is just a blanket rule, right? If you're in a tournament and the thing that you're doing isn't working, whether that's because means you've taken 2 hits to the head, or whether you've doubled a lot, right? Do something else is the short version of it. Even if it's suboptimal, even if you're not sure whether something else is going to work, doing something else will probably be better than just trying to do the same thing over and over again. People who have a thing that they like tend to think, that didn't work, I will try the same thing harder and faster. Maybe it will work this time. 99 times out of 100, the answer is not do the same thing faster. It's do something else. So even if you're not sure whether your other thing is going to work and it's something you're worse at, it'll actually probably be better than you trying to do the thing you're good at that isn't working against a particular person that you're fencing. If nothing else, you'll surprise them because you're now not doing the thing that they're expecting. Okay, so if things aren't working out for you, do something differently, right? Now, how do you develop doing that well? Well, you can't really do that for the first time in a tournament. Sparring is a great time to do that. And in sparring, what I would strongly encourage people to do is find ways to break themselves out of their comfort zone. I've got some other past videos on kind of sparring games and things like that. There was a tournament prep video, I think, where I talked about a game I use that's driven from Vardy to help get people out of the comfort zone. But it's a good idea not to go into sparring just thinking, I'm just going to have fun, I'm going to do the thing that I want, but to actively sit down and think, what am I bad at, right? Let me try and focus on that in sparring. Because sparring is there's no real consequences of you failing in sparring, right? You got hit, fine, right? You probably didn't get hit that hard because you're sparring lightly with a friend and it didn't work. And then you can try something else and see if that works, and try something else and see if that works. And by repeatedly, when you're doing sparring, not just focusing on the things that you're good at, but actually actively choosing something that you're less good at, or maybe not good at all, and trying to focus on that, you're building that repertoire for other things in your toolkit, so that when you're in a situation in tournament and you're finding that the thing that you wanted to do isn't working, you have something else you can fall back on and say, okay, that's not working, but what about this? Well, what about this? And you're not trying something out for the first time in a tournament context. So that's really all I wanted to say, right? Absolutely, I had this situation in the tournament. I came out with 2 golds, by the way, one in Feder, one in mixed weapons, and 100% I was doing this throughout the whole tournament. If I'd seen somebody fencing and I knew what they would like to do, I used that information and I would exploit it. Absolutely. I had a couple matches that opened up with a double, which in that rule set, you replay the double. And that double gave me some information about what my opponent was trying to do. And pretty much invariably with those ones that opened up with a double, I then took kind of clean exchange. It's a complicated rule set, but basically I won the rest of the fight quite comfortably because I gained some information from that. But they didn't adapt. They did the same thing. And it's like, okay, cool. Thanks. I'll take those 3 points from you. Thank you very much. I'll wrap up by saying, being an adaptive fencer is harder. When you first start to try and adapt things, you'll be worse because you will be doing things that you're less good at, right? By definition, you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone, you're doing that. But in the long run, it will mean that you will be a better fencer overall, because a lot of the time, the best thing to do is not the thing that you're best at, but the thing that you are relatively best at compared to your opponent's ability to deal with it. And if you could be doing something which you are genuinely worse at, but your opponent is not expecting it, or just worse at defending against it, and actually you'll get better success from that, because fencing has 2 people in all circumstances, or at least 2 people. You might be doing it multi combat or whatever. And as a result, it's never just about your skills. It's about how your skills relate to what your opponent is doing. Adaptive fencing, that's where to be at for that. Thanks for watching.